Hello and welcome back to the channel. Well, we continue to hear these stories over and over and over again. And you're about to hear the story of a young black woman who says she is exhausted from trying to be the right kind of black girl at work. And the adage goes that you have to work twice as hard for half as much. She says it never rang more true. And so she goes on to explain the story about how it started very young when she moved, or should I say when her parents moved her into a majority white school, and how she tried to prove herself starting way back then that she can be the whitest white girl and that she can kind of pull back or stray away from being who she was, which was a black girl. But anyway, go ahead and listen how she took the journey from trying so hard to fit into a world that wasn't hers into adulthood where she was trying to do the same thing at work, and then she finally just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. This is just too exhausting. So take a listen at her story, and I will be right back with additional commentary.
Much of my experience as a black woman has been learning to survive in white spaces. The last time I was able to exist in a majority black environment was in elementary school, more than 15 years ago. Once I matriculated into the next level of academia, my parents decided to place me into a more diverse middle and high school. Diverse as in majority white, with a few people of color sprinkled throughout. I didn't have a hard time transitioning into my new white environment. I embraced it as any eager middle school girl would. What I do recognize, in hindsight, were the tiny ways in which I went into survival mode. This was the beginning of a life filled with endless code switching, always modifying my behavior and appearance to adapt to my new sociocultural normal. My fashion choices changed from Rocawear to Hollister and Abercrombie. I begged my parents for Birkenstock shoes and Vera Bradley handbags, and I only wore my naturally curly hair pressed bone straight. I was doing everything in my power to transcend my race, to be more relatable to my peers. Yes, I'm black, but look at how much we have in common. It's okay to be friends with me. There were thousands of subtle ways that I changed myself to make sure I was the right kind of black girl for the white people who suddenly surrounded me. Safe. Sweet. Not too bossy. Not too loud. Not ghetto at all. Enunciate every word. Diction is done with the tip of the tongue. I had to make sure that I didn't stand out more than I already did. I felt like everyone was looking at me, waiting for the moment that I dropped the ball so that I could confirm their preconceived notions about black people. It wasn't until graduated from high school and enrolled in my PWI, predominantly white institution, that I realized how much I was playing pretend. I loved my college, and the majority white demographic was something I was very well adjusted to. But I suddenly felt like I didn't belong, and that this experience was going to be different. The mask that I religiously wore wasn't serving me anymore, so I finally gave myself permission to let it go. I stopped straightening my hair all the time. I stopped worrying so much about what people thought of me, and I stopped trying so hard to be accepted by the white people around me. I didn't need to pretend anymore. I finally felt at peace about who I was. I found my community of black friends in college who I could be my complete self around. I didn't have to worry about surviving under a white gaze anymore, or so I thought. By the time I graduated from college, I finally had a real sense of who I was. I had worked hard to find myself, and I had achieved some pretty stellar goals along the way. Being my authentic self in college opened so many doors for me. I was proud to have graduated with a job in public relations, unlike most of my peers, and I thought adjusting to my new adult career would be a breeze. I didn't realize that my survival mode was about to kick into overdrive. Being one of the few black girls at school came with its own social pressures, but it was nothing compared to being part of the very limited number of black people at work. The stakes were suddenly much higher and the pressure was worse. The adage "you have to work twice as hard for half as much" never rang more true. Not only did I find myself slowly putting on the mask again, I hated myself for the constant code switching I was forced to do. I started focusing on the way my words sounded coming out of my mouth again. I hate meaningless conversation, but when I go to work, I become a master at small talk. I transform into a watered-down version of myself to ensure that I am palatable. Conversations at work were more about my hair and clothes than the job. I became the spokesperson for the black community and diversity in the office. I had a mental list of things that I shouldn't do, wear or say at work. Wear your natural curls, but not too big so you don't bring too much attention to your fro. Don't wear your hair in too low buns anymore, because last time you did someone grabbed them and called you a Powerpuff Girl in a meeting. You were so embarrassed that you wanted to cry. Avoid political conversations by any means necessary. Be stylish but not too stylish at work, because people have commented on the length of your legs, the height of your heels, and your body at work. Don't bring too much attention to your body. Be soft-spoken when you speak, not too firm or harsh. Don't show any emotions, especially anger or irritation. Be careful about who you talk to and what you say. Don't bring too much attention to yourself. Being a young black girl in a majority white professional environment also has its own complexities. I recall the day I was called little girl at work by a colleague in the most condescending manner. I have thick skin and rarely does anything bring me to tears, but in that instant, I never felt so small. I called my mom and cried. After 10 minutes, I had to pick myself up and pretend like nothing happened. I was already young and black. I couldn't afford to let anyone see me crying. I had to be strong or they would never take me seriously. The microaggressions I was dealing with at work led to an enormous amount of self-doubt and caused me to put more pressure on myself than I could ever imagine. The code switching was exhausting, but I needed to keep it up for survival. This was my job now. I'm usually a confident person, but that confidence dwindles on bad days. I do my best to work hard and be the best that I can be, but I still tense up in meetings and question if I even belong there. I want to make sure I present myself in the most professional way possible. As a black woman, my actions represent an entire community. I am fully aware of the stereotypes, and I try to tear them down one by not reinforcing them. Sometimes I suffer from imposter syndrome, despite all of the hard work I put in for my career. I still get paranoid and second-guess every word that comes out of my mouth. I feel like I'm holding my breath every day from 9 to 5, and when I leave the office I can breathe again. I find my balance outside of work. I indulge in environments that let me live unapologetically. I read too many books, volunteer, and network with people I admire. I have real conversations with my friends about the world around us. I also have allies and safe zones in the office that allow me to come completely undone and express how I feel during frustrating moments. I'm working on learning how to function fearlessly in these spaces without constricting who I am. But until I completely arrive at that moment, I'll keep my mask handy, a shield keeping me safe.
So as you've heard, the story of this young black woman was very exhausting, even to listen to. Her experience mirrored that of so many black women in the world. Starting at a very young age, depending on the area that you're living in, you are trying to fit into a world that is not your own, a world that isn't existing or that doesn't exist in reality for you, but something that you've had to create in order to fit in. And so a lot of people have found themselves in that position, and now they are trying to find their way back home because the experiences are too exhausting. And then when you realize that it doesn't really get you anything, you don't really achieve anything other than disrespect, because you're telling yourself that if I act more like someone else, that Maybe they'll like me better, but their actions toward you shows that they still see you as less than, calling you girl or little girl or Powerpuff Girl, and just different things to lessen your value in their minds and even in your own mind, because it has a psychological effect on you. And like this young woman said, that when she was called out of her name, I believe it was Powerpuff Girl at the time, but it bothered her so bad. It was either the Powerpuff statement or calling her a little girl. That statement bothered her so bad that she called her mother crying. Now imagine being a grown woman and someone belittling you, calling you little girl when you are a grown woman, and it hurts you so bad that it causes you to call your and cry. So you can see the deepness and the psychological damage that is done when you don't really embrace who you are. Now, everyone is different. Everyone is different, okay? And I must say this because some of us don't get affected by it like that. We may remember the statement and we may realize what's taking place, but some of us have more of an attitude like, I don't know who you think you are. You know what I'm saying? Some of us are not bothered in that way by what others say about us. We're not bothered to the point of tears, right? Depending on what it is. Of course, there are things that will bring you to tears, but certain racial things don't necessarily bring all of us to tears. It makes some of us analyze what is being said, what is being done, who said it, who did it, and the type of mental damage they actually operate in to feel this way. And I'm one of those people. I'm looking at them like they're the ones crazy. I've been called the N-word a number of times in my life, starting at a very young age. And so I think I was prepped for this. And I'm talking about in the city of Detroit and surrounding areas. I've shared some of my experiences, especially one in Livonia, Michigan, where we were just driving through a park just to turn around. We weren't going there to get off and put the children on swings or play or hang out or anything. I just turned up in there to turn around. And there was a group of white guys who saw us going through the park to turn around. And they said, "Get out of here, you effing N-words." And I remember at the time I was a Christian. I was very young. And I remember fear coming over me. And I said, you know what, let me go ahead and get my behind out of here. You see, that was the attitude I had. But I didn't go home and cry. I didn't go home and just say, why do they feel this way about us? I remember after getting out of there thinking to myself, I don't know who the heck they think they are. You know, those are the thoughts that came to me, but it was definitely not tears. It didn't take me to tears because in my mind, of course, back then as a Christian, I was saying that we are all God's children. I called him God at the time. We are all God's creation and that we're supposed to love one another. Those are the thoughts that I had back then. But now I don't have those same thoughts. I feel like this deep bottled up hatred. And you know what? I can't even call it bottled up because bottled up means that you are holding back, you know, and that you're holding it inside. You don't want anyone to know it's there. But this was just right out in the open. But this feeling of hatred that they have, this overwhelming hatred to where a young woman in her 20s, and then my mother was in the vehicle with me. And I think I had one or two small children at the time as well. But I said to myself, man, our presence or the sight of us driving through this public park bothers you that bad. You got to have some tripped out demons swirling around in your brain, because anyone who knows me knows that I wasn't a thug type. I wasn't a hood rat type. I wasn't anything like that. I was just a church girl who wore her dresses, smiled all the time, this, that, and the other. So you couldn't have stereotyped me in any kind of way and plus I was in my car, so there was nothing you could see. We didn't have no music blasting. So I knew then that there was a certain type of demon in that group of people, right? And so again, It brought fear on me. I will say that. I'll admit that much, because they do things to you and you disappear, right? It did bring fear, but it did not bring tears. It was more anger than anything, like, who the heck do you think you are? But anyway, I kind of got off the story of the woman with the natural hair, who's trying to embrace herself after playing make-believe for so long to please people who ultimately still had no respect for her. And so my position is this: just be who you are. And if they can't accept who you are, forget about them. I don't care who they are. I don't care if you're black or white. If you don't like my hair, because you have black people too who don't like natural hair, don't like blackness, they don't like anything about their own culture. My thing is this: whether you're black or white, Chinese, Mexican, Arab, doesn't matter. If you are one of those foul type of people with this foul spirit, you keep that to yourself, okay? I'm going to be who I am. I wear my hair covered. Some people look at the covering on my hair. Sometimes I wear just my locks. And if you're bothered by it, the way I see it, that is your problem, not mine. What I'm going to do is keep it moving. And I would suggest the same thing to any so-called black person who is trying to fit into a world that's not your own. Let people deal with the problems of their own ignorant minds. You be who you are and keep it moving. I'm done with this video. In the comment section, please share your comments. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, share and like this video. And with that, I'm out. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel. And also comment, share, like, and subscribe.